Officially, there is a major manhunt on tonight for the man in Epping who ASA'd a 14-year-old girl. Apparently, he has escaped from prison, but the true story is much more shocking. And David Lammy, as Justice Secretary, has lied consistently about this subject. I'm about to tell you in this video that what has happened to him is effectively government policy, and that nobody should be surprised at what has taken place. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all my videos as soon as they are released. Okay, let's read the bit from the BBC. Police have launched a manhunt after an asylum seeker who SA'd a 14-year-old girl was mistakenly released from prison. Ethiopian national Hadush Gerberslasie Kebatu, who arrived in the UK on a small boat, was jailed for 12 months over the attack in Epping, Essex last month. Prison sources said that Kebatu was meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre ahead of his planned deportation. An investigation has been launched by the prison service and an officer has been removed and discharged from duties while it takes place. On the 7th and 8th of July, Kebatu SA'd the teenager as well as a woman, with the attack sparking nationwide protest. In September, he was sentenced to 12 months. Remember, we were moaning yesterday. 12 months and given a 5-year harm prevention order, which banned him from approaching or contacting any female. He was also made to sign the offenders register for 10 years. Kebatu had been living in the Bell Hotel in Epping before his arrest. A prison service spokesman said, "We are urgently working with police for the return of this offender following his release from HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority and we have launched an investigation into this incident." David Lammy says, "I'm appalled by this release at HMP Chelmsford. We are urgently working to get him back." What a load of bunkum. So let's just be clear on the first thing. He was jailed last month for SA on a 14-year-old girl and a woman, right? But this month, he's being released, right? Here's the bit they don't tell you. It is standard practice for them to allow people to travel from prison to immigration detention facilities under their own steam. So what they say to them is, they say, hey, listen, we're going to deport you, but what you need to do is when we release you from prison, just walk or travel to the detention centre. Nobody does it. Now, the only mistake that was made in the case of Kebatu was that they asked him to make his own way to the detention centre rather than driving him there themselves. But had they driven him there, they may have done something that they've done multiple times in the past, which is to send taxis. Now, I had a friend of mine who was a taxi driver who used to move people from immigration facility to prison and backwards and forwards. And what he said was, he said, look, I'm not there to fight them. All I do is I get a fare from, say, Chelmsford to the detention centre. If the guy gets out at the traffic lights, I'm not going to stop him. It's not my job to do that. I'm a professional driver. And so my point is this. You may first be appalled that Kebatu only got 12 months in prison for what he did. You may then be appalled that he's been released after just 1 month. 1 month of detention. And then, of course, he's asked to make his own way from the prison to a detention centre. You may be appalled by all those things, but all of those things are absolutely standard practice. Now, there's always going to be debate in this country, isn't there, about whether we should lock people up in Britain or simply deport them when they've committed a crime. To be honest with you, if you're talking about a foreign criminal, quite often a lot of people say, just get them out of the country and let their own authorities deal with them. I don't know. Maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe that's the wrong thing to do. Many countries that these people come from are far less squeamish than we are when it comes to PDFs. But some, to be fair, will let them free. So there is that debate. But when we're talking about a multicultural society like Britain, where there are people who come from countries that have no respect for women, where there are countries where people come from where life is cheap, where there are countries where people come from where the machete culture is part of everyday life, we do have to have additional protections in place for our public. I would like those protections to be at the border, but if we can't do it at the border, then we must do it in our communities, because all of this is a problem together, isn't it? You will now have a situation in Britain where anybody can come to the country willy-nilly unless they want to do it legitimately. If somebody wants to come to the country legitimately, oh, it'll cost them 20 grand, they'll be weighed down with legal fees, it'll be an absolute nightmare. But if they want to come illegally, it's all fine. So you've got that. Then you've got the destruction of the police. I'm very critical of the police, by the way, but I have to say I've got a lot of time for ordinary constables. I think that they are very often the victims of the ludicrous situation that we have where lefties at the top want everyone to police by policy and everyone to be a social worker. But nonetheless, we've got no real policing in this country. We've got courts who are filled, as Robert Jenrick said, with people who are pro-immigration campaigners. Therefore, we've got no way whatsoever of protecting our public. I always say, you've heard me say this before, that we've moved our borders, haven't we? The borders used to be at Dover, but now the borders are around public buildings. So it's very hard to get into the Palace of Westminster. It's very hard to get into Windsor Castle. It's very hard to get into Buckingham Palace. That's where the border is now. Anybody can come to the country, but not everybody can come into the buildings where the elite sits behind these giant, enormous walls. Well, Kebatu may be caught, and when he is caught, we're going to pretend that it wasn't genuinely the normal policy to make these people travel. But 1 month in prison for SA, no wonder these people are flocking to Britain. I've no doubt, just as happened yesterday with the first person to return after the one-in, one-out scheme, no doubt he will now claim asylum on the basis that he says that he will be harmed in Ethiopia if he goes back as a convicted nonce, and no doubt the courts will look favourably upon that. I believe that Kebatu can look forward to a career of SA in Britain, a career living in a council house, a career living on benefits whilst the people that pay for it have to offer up their children and their tax revenue and indeed the homes that they in previous generations would have had. I live in a building, by the way, right here that was earmarked, or some of it, you know, they do 25% social housing. Some of it was earmarked for the poor of this town. Trust me, none of the properties go to the poor of this town. They're all given to people who are recent migrants to the country because they take top priority, because they're the people who've got nowhere to sofa surf to, whereas, of course, people who are British do. So that's how they get round that little trick. But anyway, Lammy, once again, complete and total lie. I'm told he's an affable man. He should never complain about racism, by the way, because if it wasn't for racism, he'd never have got into Harvard. They had a quota of black people to come in order to even the historical imbalance in the number of students there, and he got in even though he was a moron. But for him to stand up and say that what has happened with Kebatu is not absolutely government policy is just the biggest pile of dung I've ever heard in my life. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. Also, you can donate to the Patriot Fund below if you've got the chance. Until next time, goodbye.